Hello, once more, welcome back to the cellar. In this one I'm going to be looking at weathering a Hornby railroad van. Those of you who've seen them will know they can look a little bit pristine when they're new, so let's get down to the cellar and yeah, this is Leopard Street. So as per the intro, what we're going to be doing, weathering these, well actually 3 of them. I've got 9. I'm going to be doing these in batches of 3, specifically really so that I get 3 different levels of weathering. So the very first thing that needs to be done, well actually the very first thing that needs to be done, is I'm going to take the wheels out. They are going to get painted, but they're going to get painted separately. So if I take these out, put them to one side. Couple of purposes. Firstly, obviously it means I don't get any paint on the wheels unless I want to, and secondly, put the wagon down without it rolling around, which helps. I could take the couplings out, although I'm not going to, because what I actually want to do is have the couplings match. I can't believe how dirty these wheels have got. These wagons aren't that old and they haven't run all that much, but I have to clean the wheels, I think, before they go back together. Right, that's number 2. And here's number 3. Now, I'm going to be doing a couple of different steps on these. What I intend to do is do one of them a little bit slowly and show you it as I'm doing. I will then repeat the same steps on the other 2, which I'll speed up when I'm playing it back on the video. So you don't actually have to watch me do the same thing 3 times. So I have 3 of these. Now the very first thing I need to do is this roof. Now much as this roof's quite nice, it's far too white. These were painted white at the workshop. It was a white lead, and what that basically means is it didn't stay white for very long. It just reacted. Now I'm going to use this as my first colour, Model Air Neutral Grey. I'm not going to bother masking, I'm just going to spray straight down from the top to try and get the roof. I could mask it, but to be honest, a little bit of overspray onto the sides I'm not actually that concerned about. So here we go. Airbrush. Check that's cleaned out. And put some of this neutral grey in here and see how this works. A little bit of that. And we shall see. This could screw up completely, but I suspect it should be alright. So here we go, straight down on the top. Now what I'm aiming for here is a fairly even coat, but also a fairly light coat. It doesn't have to be completely even, a little bit of mottling I'm not too bothered about, but I would prefer it to be fairly even. You can see I don't really need to mask this because it's just the roof. I can actually tilt the vehicle slightly as I get near the corners and avoid the problem. So, a fairly light coat of this. Like so, and that is already looking better. Now, I haven't finished with the roof. I'm going to come back and do a bit more to it. This is basically just a first step. Yeah, feel free to imagine music or humming in these little gaps. It's, yeah, it's just one of those things. Right, I'm going to go clean the airbrush in a minute, but before I do that, you can see that's gone quite nicely, but it's left the ends. Not overly bothered about that at the moment. I am going to touch that up with a brush, however. But I'm going to go clean the airbrush and I shall then return. Okay, airbrush cleaned. To be honest, they look a lot better as they are. Right, next step is going to be dealing with these edges. So what I've got is a small palette. I'm going to find a brush, which I have several knocking about around here. Some of these hiding behind me, but it'll do. So what I've got is a number 1. I could probably use something a bit different to that, but I've got a number 1. Now, And now this one, which is neutral grey, basically the same colour, but it's the model colour version, not the Model Air version. Reason being it's just a little bit better paint for using with a brush. So put some of that onto there. It's a reasonably thin colour. And then it's basically just going to get my light and magnifier a little bit. That'll do. And it's just touch up lightly along the edge. Really just again, just to kill the white. A little bit you can see on the underside of that there. Yeah, so this goes on. I'm trying to avoid touching the roof. It's sort of dry, but it's at the level where it'll still take a fingerprint if you're not careful. Apply a little bit of that. As you can see, that's killed the white on that end. Do the same on the other end, they'll do the same down the sides. And I will be back shortly with more things, so I'll leave you watching this and I'll speed it up. Yeah, during these little fast forward bits, feel free to hum music if it helps. Obviously I can't due to all sorts of wonderful little copyright restrictions, but here we go, getting this white killed off. And that's the first one done. So you can see the white of the roof killed. Looks quite a bit better actually. I'll do the other two and I shall return in a mo. This brush step's actually quite straightforward to do. I mean, as you can see, this is not really taking a huge amount of time. Would have been perfectly possible to brush all of this. If you don't have an airbrush, there's always alternatives. The secret being just make sure the paint's reasonably thin, because what you don't want at the end of this is brush strokes on the roof. Nice smooth coat is really the key you're looking for here. And back. Now, the first thing I've noticed is this model colour paint and the Model Air paint are not massively the same colour. Shows up a little bit more on this one. Not too fussed. I am actually going to deal with that in a second, but I'm going to let the paint dry first. So I'll be back in a minute when the paint's dried. Okay, so here we got two very slightly different shades of grey and a piece of sponge. So what I'm going to do is take the same neutral grey paint, just put myself a little bit more of that onto the palette, don't need vast amounts of it. I'm then going to take a sponge, a little bit of that, and then a lot of it's going to come off onto the cardboard here, and then I'm going to put this all over the roof like this. And what this is going to do, keep turning the sponge around, that bit matters, is it'll mottle the two colours together a little bit, and it'll take away some of the single colour consistency feel to the roof. And I'll do this to all three, and then I'm going to do this again. I'm going to use different colours. What I'm aiming for here, because obviously they say these were white lead roofs, is I'm aiming just for a slightly uneven, slightly more dirty version of the colour onto the roof. This sponging will also add let's move it over here so you can see a bit better. It will also add a very slight texture, which is good. It's sort of what I want. It covers up, there's a few areas where the airbrush coat didn't go on brilliantly, but it doesn't really matter because I'm covering it over like this. So that's that. Right, before that dries, what I actually want is to add, have I got a lighter grey around here? I do. I have medium sea grey. Let's see what this looks like when I mix this with a little bit of the neutral grey. Don't want to use it on its own because it'll be a bit of a colour jump. So some of that, and then this one, medium sea grey. It's a slightly lighter, very slightly bluer grey. Add some of that. And I'm going to find something I can use to mix them with. And my weapon of choice here is a little piece of wire, because this is my electronics desk, so this sort of stuff is all over the place. So just mix that. It doesn't have to be mixed perfectly to do this with. In fact, to some extent you don't want it to be, because it means it's all going to be a little bit more uneven. I just want to get a lot of the paint off the sponge before I use it, and then just dab some of this. It's going to get more weathering over the top eventually anyway. This is just about dirtying it up a little bit. Slightly dirty. I mean, it'll look a bit better when it's had more of a chance to dry. This can just go on. I've got a darker colour as well. I am going to be sort of streaking weathering this as well. Just turn the sponge around a bit. It just gives me a slightly dirty look to the roofs, which is what I want. There's going to be a fair bit of weathering actually done on these vehicles, which this is something I quite enjoy. I do this a lot on military models, and it really does just help break the vehicles up a little bit. You can see as that's starting to dry, it's the camera's picking it up brilliantly, but the very light grey effect I've got is darkening quite nicely. Put a little bit more. Discovered a problem. Finish doing that one. For whatever reason, I have managed to get some grey paint on the side of the van, which I don't particularly want, so I'm going to remove that. Simple technique with a bit of water. See, a little bit of grey there I don't want on the side. So, yeah, basically gone. A little bit in the recesses, that I'm not bothered about. I have a technique for dealing with that. Just check the others are alright from that perspective as well. Here, this one's got a little bit, so that. Just rub that. Actually, one of my fingers had a little bit of paint on it from the sponge, and that's gone on. The roofs are now slightly more uneven. I'm going to add a slightly darker tone to that as well while I'm at it, with black grey, which is quite a lot darker. See if I can get the lid off. A little bit of that, don't need much of that at all. Put that out of the way, and then mix that in, and as you can see, that just even that very tiny amount there has had quite an effect on that grey. And again, same sponge, a little bit of that. Get my fingers are clean this time. And we'll just dab a little bit of that on as well. They say this is a very, very simple technique. Very simple, very quick to do. And actually remarkably effective. I mean, you can use this on pretty much anything, just to help break a bit of colour up. I mean, I've used this on sort of concrete floors and similar sorts of things. Right, there we go, that's that. That's enough sponging for that. And we have this. Now this is the other trick I've got with the airbrush. There's no paint in this, but it just helps dry things a little bit quicker. So, 3 vans with a roof, so what's next? Well, I'm going to go back to the first one. Next up is a little bit more of this sponging effect. This lettering on the side is far too pristine at the moment, so I need to knock that back a bit. And I think this black grey is probably a good colour. Excuse me, a good colour for doing this. We are going to lighten the sides of these vehicles up a little bit in a minute, but just Just need a little bit of this. Don't need much of this at all. This is going to use another piece of sponge. And the sponge I'm using is this. This came from a figures blister pack. I forget what was in this. Oh yeah, Judge Dredd. There's a Judge Dredd figure in this one. So a little bit more paint. Here I take a lot more of it off. That'll do. And then this is just going to go just on here like this. And over the number. And the idea of this is just to distress it a little, like that. Simple effect. It just means the white isn't quite so pristine. And we are going to be weathering the sides of the vehicles as well shortly. But this is just a pre-coat for that. Knock that around slightly like so. These are all going to get dirtied as well with the weathering, but this is to represent where bits of the paint have rubbed off. The colour of the vehicle underneath is showing through slightly in a few places. It's not much. So bring that back up here. There we go, that'll do. As you can see, not much of that at all. Now what's going to follow is one of my favourite techniques, because it's very simple to do. Dry brushing. Now, it occurs to me watching a few videos, there are quite a few people painting model railway vehicles who are not used to painting other models, and as such dry brushing is perhaps a little bit of a black art. I'm going to show you. This is extremely simple to do. So what I'm going to go back to is I need a lighter grey. I don't necessarily want one that's completely light. I've got here German grey. Now is that going to be, no, that'll be two. Right, I'm going to go with neutral grey. I don't have a grey halfway between them. I could mix one. Let's mix one. So what I'm going to do is put some of that, a little bit of that one, and then this German grey, which is an air paint, so it's a bit thinner, but that's fine. That's not a problem at all. So we'll put put some of that on there. And a chunk of that has just sprayed, but thankfully I don't think it's hit anything. No, I don't think it has. That's good. So what I'm now going to do is mix those together. Gives me a slightly darker grey. It's not as dark as I'd have wanted it to, but never mind. Then onto here, I'm going to take most of the paint off. Now this is very simple. This is a piece of cardboard. It's got paint on it. What I'm going to try and get to is so I can just about see it on my fingers. Very light. And then it's this. Just across. Very, very light touch on the vehicle. Sort of vertically, if I can. So, and what you can see this is doing, I'll do the underframe as well while I'm at it and do a little bit of that. What you can see is that has picked up, it's quite harsh on that door, I'm going to come back to that. That has picked up the edges, which is what I needed. So I'm going to do the same again on this side. And I'm really holding this brush very, very lightly. And all I'm trying to do is pick out the raised details on the side of the van. Circular motion in a few places. Try not to go too much side to side. You don't really want to work all this into the gaps underneath, but you do want a little bit. As you can see, what that's done, that's lightened it up. And the beauty of dry brushing is it's basically dry already. So I can now come on and do the ends. The ends are going to get a lot more weathering as well, with a lot more dirt. Do the buffers as well. And the couplings, because if you do the couplings they'll blend in a little bit better. The underframe is going to get some other weathering effects done on it as well. But that's that. So do this end of this one, like so. And there. Now I'll bring up a pristine one. of a difference. It's not huge. It's supposed to be quite a subtle effect. Yeah, a bit more paint on this. We don't need much paint on it at all. These brushes are also worth pointing out. You can use normal paint brushes for dry brushing. These fatter ones are much better. Artis Opus do a range of these, Series D. These are Artify. I got these off Amazon for quite a lot less. These was, I think there was a set of about 7 or 8 of them, and it was 15, 20 quid. It wasn't much. But the bigger rounded heads of these brushes make doing this sort of effect a lot simpler than trying to do this using a normal dry brush. As you can see also, I'm going over the white with this as well. This again is going to soften this in, blend it in. This one perhaps a little bit heavier on the sides than some of the others. And we shall see how we go. A little bit more paint, doesn't need too much. You get a feel for doing this. I mean, as I say, I've been doing this on gaming models for many, many years, where sometimes the effect is a lot more contrasty than this, should we say. So that's those, and what I'm now going to do is the same thing, but now just the neutral grey, which again is going to be a bit lighter. And you get quite a dusty effect doing this as well. Another thing you'll notice, I've not cleaned the brush out. These brushes obviously take quite a while to dry if they do get wet, but doing it this way, and this is now just a very light effect going over. Here I'm really just trying to catch some of the raised edges on the strapping. By not cleaning the brush, I'm actually going to get a bit of a blend of the two colours on the brush, which makes life, again, a little bit simpler. There we go. That's that. So you can see again, it's a slight effect. It's meant to be a slight effect. You can dry brush a lot more subtly than this, and you really, really can build up colours. A good way of doing this is, for example, you can build up, say, yellow over black using this technique, which anybody who's tried painting yellow might be quite surprised to hear, but it actually works really, really well. Let's come back on here like this. The directions on it so that it catches the edges. And this really is basically an extreme form of edge highlighting, although without going through doing it all by hand. That one, this one here. Again, a little bit lighter on this one. And what I'm trying to get here, this is in stages. It's not really weathering as such. This is aging the paint. So these here, they come out of the factory, the workshop in their rather leaden grey colour, and now they've been exposed to the sun for a while, and the paint has faded a little bit. There we go. That works. I am going to go a little bit lighter with a light grey, which I've got somewhere. The medium sea grey is a bit lighter. Sorry, I have the brush in my mouth. This one's going to be a very light colour highlight. I really don't want much of this. See, I'm not going to use much of this paint at all. So again, a dab of that, and then rub most of that off. Pick a Wagon, and this goes on. And again, it's a very subtle effect. But what it really does do, I mean, these Wagons have a lot of moulded detail. It makes the moulded detail stand out really rather well. So that's that. And then a little bit on the roof here and there as well, just around the edges. And what this will do again is sort of bring the whole model together. Again, I mean, you may think you can't really see much of a difference on this, and there isn't much of a difference. As I say, that is sort of the point. If you went straight to this lighter colour, it would stand out like a sore thumb and it would look wrong. But doing it this way, what I've ended up with is some rather dusty looking railway wagons, which is the effect I'm after. Right, this is the last one. Could have taken the bodies off these. I did look actually to see if I could take the roofs off. Unfortunately, you can't on these. The body and the roof is moulded together. If I could have done that, I would have taken the roof off and painted them separately. I would have put them back before I did this stage though, because as you can see, there's actually a darker line along the top where this brush isn't going, and that's an effect I want. Right, so that's it for dry brushing that. Again, a little bit on the underframe, don't need too much. The main things I'm doing on the underframe, I'm going to be picking out the end of the brake handle, which you can just about see in white, which I'm going to do in a minute actually, because I want that before I fully weather it. I now need to clean this brush. I'll be back in a minute. Occurs to me it might be worthwhile saying how to clean the brushes. I use this stuff, brush cleaner. It's fairly straightforward. The brush gets water added to it, and then run around in this. This is like a soap, but it's also a bit of a conditioner. Get rid of a lot of the paint in the water, and this in here gets a bit cleaner. After a while you end up having to scrape a layer of this clean. And in the water. Now, as I said, these brushes soak up a lot of water. And you can't dry brush with them unless they are bone dry. So you do have to dry them off quite well. That's still quite damp and will be for a while, but it's clean. Yeah, clean the end, that'll do. So, let's have a little think about what we want to do next on these. Now look at one of these. Now this now looks faded. And to be honest, I think that's probably not too bad. I was going to put some panel liner on. I don't think they actually need it. No, it might be a bit much. Might be a little bit on the roof. I'll be back in a mo. Okay, so what's the next step? Well, the next step is going to be some panel lining. Now, as I said, I don't think it all needs it. Some bits may get it. I'm going to use this. This is a dark brown panel liner. This is from AK. This is an enamel. The reason I'm using this is, if I'm right, this has got a brush in it. It has. Good. This is really aimed at sort of, I mean, it's a dark brown. It's aimed at sort of mid-brownish military models. You may wonder why I'm not using black. I wonder why I'm not using black as well. Essentially, my local hobby shop doesn't have any, so I couldn't. And for anything else, I'm actually just going to pause briefly. Right, back. What I've basically just done is completely rearrange my desk so that I can use my little light here without it getting completely so that you can't see what I'm doing. Yes, right. So, panel liner. Give it a good shake. It comes with a brush, and what I'm doing with it is up here is just a little bit around this rain strip. It's a bit much. Take a chunk of that off. So just a bit of that off. And with a little bit along the edges of the roof as well. This stuff's a little bit like magic because it's an oil paint. It has very, very low surface tension. So if I just basically just touch it in a few places, it then does the rest of the work for me. Which is rather nice. There's a few rivets on the roof, so just put this a little bit around these. Little dabs of this here and there. Again, this is possibly going to get a little bit of highlighting done over the top. What I'm also going to do is a little bit of streaking with it, just around the edges. I am probably going to put some of this down the sides as well, actually. I think it'll make quite a difference. A little bit more. And just come around this up here so you can see. On this rain strip. And what it's doing is just adding a little bit of a highlight to that. Go over here to this end, a bit more of this, a little bit around some of these rivets, and that's giving the roof a little bit of a dirtier look, so I am actually going to do some of this down the side. The reason for doing some of it down the side is really just to get this brown in, because on the sides of the van this is going to look a little bit rust-like. I've got some other stuff to add to it, but actually I'm quite liking how this is turning out on here, so a little bit of rust over the metalwork. Obviously can't really put it over the bodywork, because the bodywork ain't metal, so the bodywork ain't going to rust. Put a little bit on here. Lock and chain on the door. And it's just starting to bring some of this out. Again, just a little. Doesn't have to do. You don't need much. This is very firmly in the less is more category. A little bit up there, a little bit across that bit, and around that. You see, just a little bit brown. Might be a bit much on the roof. Might have to turn the roof down slightly, but the rest of it, actually, back here again, so you can see, is working quite nicely. Don't do it all. Just thinking, as I'm putting this on, where would water gather? Because that might be where you'll get a little bit of a rust effect. A bit along that edge of that roof as well. And a little bit of staining dribbling down the sides. You see it's actually rubbed off on part of the roof already on the side, just a little bit annoying, but there we go. Yeah, body side. Do the other one. This stuff, I mean, I got this from my local model shop. There's a Hobby Workshop in Barnsley, if anybody's interested. They sell all sorts of paint ranges. Rather annoyingly, they were out of stock of the black when I went to get some on Thursday, because I was planning on doing, Tuesday. I was planning on using a bit of black on here around some of these bits, but actually this brown is, I think, working well nicely. As I say, it is a panel liner, so the idea is you rub this on, it goes into the joins. Quite a simple effect. It's basically an oil wash. You can make oil washes quite easily. I haven't, because I can't be bothered to clean the brushes up. And that's sort of the roof and the sides of that. I'm not going to do the ends, but I need to be careful I'm holding it, because this takes a little bit longer to dry. So on the end, a little bit around here, under there, coming down, a little bit here and there, just as rain streaks. I do have some streaking grime effect, but I'm not planning on using that on here. Again, you can see the paint starts to come off a little on the ends. I'm going to touch bits of this up and probably apply a little bit of varnish here and there as well, I think. We are going to do some rust effect on this in a minute, which will assist in some ways. That's just a bit more colour, really, above anything else. This is sort of using, so I'll bring this back into the camera again. This is sort of using military modelling techniques on a model railway wagon. I think it's working rather nicely. So that is that one. Right, I'm going to do the others. I will then return. Yeah, one thing I have noted here as I'm doing this, also look at the camera positioned slightly incorrectly. I'll correct that for the next time I start doing one of these videos. These panel liners, you can get them in several different colours. I've got this brown one. I've also got one for doing on white or very, very pale grey. I don't have the black. As you can see, it's quite straightforward. Use it as a little bit of a rust effect, a little bit of a dirt effect. They're easy to use. The best bit with the integral brush is you don't end up having to clean the brush. You can make your own just using white spirit and oil paint, however, which gives you the ability to change the consistency a little bit as well. So as I'm finishing this, be back in a mo. So here we are. This is a wagon. Not all the weathering done on it. There's a little bit of touching up I need to do on the roof edges, which is slightly frustrating when some of the paint's come off. Biggest problem here is obviously I can't prime these before I paint them because I'll obscure all the existing paint. But that's the basic distressed look on the wagon done. Now they need to dry for a little while. I'll put them back out here to dry because I now need to do a little bit more with the airbrush. Because I'm going to start off painting the wheels. Now these are going to be I'm going to get a coat of sleeper grime on them first off, which will just add a bit of colour to them. Just try and sort my airbrush out here, so when I sort my desk out I managed to obviously entangle absolutely everything. Put some cleaner in it, clean out. Right. Basically I've got a couple of colours to use here. I've got sleeper grime and I've got frame dirt. I'm going to start off with sleeper grime on the wheels because it's a nice brown colour, not for anything else. It also means these will then match the track work I've been doing, as if you've seen those videos, which are on the channel somewhere. Right, so wheels. First wheel. Start with the wheel, and there we are, bit of colour on it. Colour on my finger as well, but never mind. Take that round. Right, so what I'm now going to do is bring a wagon back, and I'm going to apply some of this. So I now need to move the light again just a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. And what we're going to do is literally you can see, just put a little dirty tone on the wagon. We'll do the same on the ends. Now the ends are going to get a different colour as well added to them. Well, the whole vehicle is going to get a bit more colour than just this added. Just going to go up the sides of the vehicle. A little bit more that way. It's really just about making sure it goes actually up into the underframe of the vehicle a little bit. Down here. If you haven't got an airbrush, you can do this with dry brushing. It just takes a little bit longer. I'd be interested in seeing that. Drop some likes and whatever down, and if people want to see it, I'll do one of the next one's dry brushing. Let's see how we go. As you see, that's on. It's just there. Now, what I'm also going to do is just put a little bit more on the vehicle ends. Ends of railway vehicles, if you've ever seen them in service, get a lot dirtier than the sides. So, should do that. I'm using quite a thin mix of this paint. I can go on. Now, if you may have noticed that you can get commercially weathered vehicles. I mean, some of the manufacturers have weathered items in their range. And they are basically just airbrush sprayed. Sprayed at the factory. Some more sod is sat there just literally spraying the things. Tends to be done quite quickly. I don't think done particularly well in many cases, so it's sort of alright. But there we go. So if you've seen some of them up close, you can see the paint looks quite spattered. That's a sign they've got the pressure wrong on the spray they're using. And this is obviously going on quite translucent as well, which is quite nice. They are just general purpose dirt. I'm going to go clean the airbrush out because I have got some darker colours to add to this as well to give it a try in a minute. I'll be back shortly. Right, so next up is this one, is frame dirt, which again is like painting with PVA glue, so I've pre-mixed some of that about 50-50. Obviously when I say pre-mixed I mean I have just put in some of that. A little bit of that, don't need much. This is going to go a little blast at the wheels and then a little blast at the vehicles. Very similar, just a slightly darker colour. A little bit on there. That's not really going to make much of a difference, so I'm going to be too fussed about doing loads of that. Right, so this one. It just changes the tone a little bit on the ends. The other one's more of a dirt, this is more just a yuck. And that's that. And carry on with this. Yeah, a little bit random, doesn't really have to go everywhere. It's just a sort of effect. Underneath them as well, just to catch that bit. And that's about it. So a little bit on the wheels. All of them, I think we'll leave it at that. So I'm going to go and clean this off again, and I shall be back. Alright, so what have we now got? So here we got, I've just touched up the little bits of grey on the end so you can't see the white. To stop that happening again, this satin varnish. Over the roof initially, it's going to go over the body sides and everything over the whole wagon. Airbrushes are absolutely brilliant for applying varnish because you can do this on nice and smoothly, nice and steadily, nice and thinly without having to worry about it. What you've got to do is find space on your desk for putting the airbrush. So, here we go, start on the roof. Now, it's low pressure, I don't want to get too close, I don't really want this to run. That's roof. And I'll do body ends while I'm at it, because it's a little bit awkward to do this. This will change colours slightly. This will darken them a little bit. Not much, just little. You'll see what I mean. You can see the grey has gone a little bit darker. That's what it is. Again, the roof, the bit where it's really actually rubbing off. To be honest, if the paint comes off on the body side, you're not really going to notice because it's grey underneath. This roof being pure brilliant white, however, it will show. Since I had a little bit chip off while I was painting the thing, I'm going to do this to the rest of it. Eventually this will get a matte varnish on it. I'm not sure I've got any at the moment, however. But that can wait for now, it's not a huge problem. As the other thing, obviously I could have taken the couplings off while I did this, but to be honest, I actually want them on because I want them slightly in the same colours. try and do the body sides. I'll hold the underneath, I can probably do this. And if you saw there, you'll have seen the colour change quite dramatically. It was on this side here. It's quite a lot darker fairly quickly. Not too bothered about varnishing the underframe. Don't think that's really going to need it. Basically because the underframe will never get handled apart from when I'm painting it. So I'm holding it by that bit, but we'll ignore that. That's that. Do the last one. More glossy now than it will be when it's dried. Right, they're now varnished. I'm going to go clean the airbrush out for hopefully the final time, and that's that. So we'll see them running in a bit. And here we go, the usual Q6 freight train. As we see some of the as yet unweathered pristine ones, a couple of banana vans waiting their turn, and we come on to the weathered ones, which I would hope you'd agree look a lot better. Yeah, if you've liked this or found this vaguely useful, comments, likes, shares, subscriptions, all the usual stuff, more than welcome. And I will catch you in the next one. Thank you very much, and goodbye.